Good morning, Bucknutters. It's Tuesday, September 27th, 2016. I'm Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change, joined, as always, on Tuesdays by Duane Long. Duane, almost feels like fall out there in the Gem City. How about yourself?
Oh, yeah. We're ready to go up here. I hate early off weeks. I hate early bye weeks. It just messes with the momentum. I'm ready for some football again.
It does feel like we broke our stride a little bit there and sat and watched as the rest of the college football world moved on. Of course, the Buckeyes will be back in the mix this weekend hosting Rutgers, ironically against a former coach of theirs in Chris Ash, when the national topic here has been coaching upheaval. Les Miles sent packing from LSU along with Cam Cameron. I'm not sure any of us are surprised that happened. I'm certainly surprised at the timing of it. That doesn't make much sense to bring him back after almost firing him and then to fire him so quickly, but I guess that's the way it is. What we're going to discuss today is, because it's come up on the boards, and ironically, like we said, we're facing a former Ohio State coach this weekend. Who on Ohio State's staff do we think, besides Urban Meyer, is going to be wanted by others? Because I refuse to spend more than 10 seconds on the LSU will call Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. They're also going to call Bill Belichick. I'm sure that's going to work out well. So who do you think on the Ohio State staff? Dwayne, you touched a little bit about this on one of your great message board posts. Do you think anyone on Ohio State staff will kind of follow the road that guys like Chris Ash did and get a head coaching job or be serious candidates for next year?
Well, I think you got to look at the two coordinators, and just that's what stands out is Schiano and Warner. I think Schiano is going to be a prime candidate. This is a former NFL head coach. He's in a very high-profile job right now at Ohio State, and the way the defense is playing, he's going to be a candidate. And I hate to see all these big-time jobs opening up. I mean, LSU's already open. Baylor is not as big-time, but it's, for all intents and purposes, open. I think it's very likely that we see USC open up. We could see Texas. We could see Notre Dame. Those are going to be jobs that Schiano would be highly qualified for. We could see Penn State open up. So I'm very concerned. I thought we might keep him 2 years. I'm not going to be surprised if he's out of here by the end of this first year. Warner, he could be a candidate. The offense is cranking again. You know, he was a hot topic going into last year because of the offense. He's a great line coach, and he was talked about for some jobs. So we could lose both of those guys. That's a lot of jobs, and I mean big time jobs, possibly opening up at the end of the year.
Yeah, here's the one I think that's going to be interesting, and that's Luke Fickell. Now, I'm not saying he's going to leave or he wants to leave, and I guess you could make the argument that he doesn't want to leave based on what we've seen, but I'm not saying any of the original jobs we've discussed here, the elite, uber, big-time jobs. But the thing is, those jobs, once they're filled, can create a domino effect behind them. You hear a guy like P.J. Fleck mentioned a lot for jobs. And I still think a MAC school would be very wise to hire someone like Fickell. I'm not sure he wants to do that. That's actually one I would look at. The Schiano one's going to be very interesting. The Penn State possible opening, if James Franklin continues to coach like James Franklin, I think, like you said, it's probably the most interesting just because of his ties there. But that's something we'll definitely keep an eye on. But that would be something else to have Penn State, LSU, USC, Notre Dame. Those are some blue blood programs right there. Obviously,
USC,
Texas.
USC
and Texas. Those are as good a jobs as are out there. I'm partial to Ohio State, obviously, but you'd have to accept an argument that Texas and USC are in the Mount Rushmore of jobs. Now, why they hired the way they did, I don't understand, which is probably the reason they're going to be hiring again. The most popular topic on Bucknuts and really network-wide the past few days has been the rumblings that Danny Clark could be backing out of his commitment to Ohio State and instead opting for Kentucky. This was probably the hottest topic on Ohio State's boards and all of our boards for about a year. And then it died down for a while as it appeared Clark made it, obvious he wasn't going to flip. And now it started to bubble up again. What's your vibe on the whole deal? How do you think it's going to turn out?
I need to see more, Dan. I need to see more than what's out there. It appears to be one crystal ball has changed for him, and I don't know about all that. He just seems to be. It goes against everything he's been saying. I don't know what would prompt him to do it now. And let's also keep in mind, he's going to Kentucky. Doesn't he need an offer from Kentucky? I haven't heard anything about him being offered by Kentucky. So let's, to my knowledge, the only other school that's offered him is Illinois, and that was not under this head coach. So I think there's got to be more before I can. It just doesn't make sense, let me take that back. It does make sense that he wants to go somewhere else. I am on record. I don't think Danny Clark can play here. For one thing, he's not a good enough runner, and the quarterback's got to run the ball in this offense. That's just a given. He's been inaccurate. He has not, to my knowledge, had a really good senior year. The handwriting's on the wall, and it would be in his best interest to get in a pro-style offense where he can stand in the pocket and just throw the football. He's got a chance to be a decent quarterback at some level if he does that. Coming into this zone read spread power running offense of Urban Meyer's is not. It does not fit him. It's just that simple. So it would be in his best interest. And like I said, he might be able to help some program if all he's got to do is stand back there and throw the ball. Whether he's going to do that or not, I'm still not seeing enough to make me think Danny Clark is going to go elsewhere.
I couldn't agree with you more. I don't understand the hubbub. Besides what you said, the logic factor, it just doesn't make much sense to me. We saw so much of him being adamant about sticking to his word. I got to see more to believe it. So we'll let that ride for now. Obviously, if anything comes out about that, we'll be the first to get that information to you. But I'm going to wait for the Dean and Alex on that one. All right, Duane, here's kind of the nut graph of the story here. Been a lot of discussion about a new defensive tackle, kind of a new old name getting back involved. Marvin Wilson, he apparently was invited by Oklahoma and entertained by Ohio State in more ways than one at the game. He got to see the on-field, and he got to hang with the people and was very impressed. And by the time he left, Field with Ohio State had risen up his board a little bit. Now Marvin is one to, does seem to like recruiting, so you never really know, but he has said he's going to visit. The big classic, Chester McLaughlin, for those of you who remember, defensive tackle type, is really kind of the one thing Ohio State has not picked up under Urban Meyer. I don't know if that's whether they don't want someone like that or not. They tend to lose those guys to LSU, and who knows what will happen there. But the big discussion before this was the number one guy on the board, defensive tackle-wise, was Jay Tufele. Now Marvin Wilson is in the mix. Duane Long, as an expert on the big guys inside, who would you rather have if you could only have one? Marvin Wilson out of Bel Air, Texas, or Jay Tufele, the standout from Utah?
Well, your mention of Texas over Utah, that's one thing that factors in. But I've seen Tufele, I've seen Wilson on tape. I'm going to go with Tufele simply because in a combine setting, he performed so well. I think it was Steve Wilfong. I'm not absolutely sure, or maybe it was Ryan, said that he looked like the best tackle in the country. Those drills matter. They really do. Only difference between that and what you do in practice is they don't have pads on. And he performed really well. And I saw Wilson. He did not perform as well in a combine setting. Great looking on tape. Definitely looks good. It's not like I'm saying I don't want Wilson, but I would give the edge from what I've seen to Tufele. What I really want is both of them. So if Wilson wants to come up here, that he's more than welcome. There's no way you say we're full to Marvin Wilson. Even if he's got Tufele, you take both of those guys.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you say that, because I was going to say Tufele, Wilson, Baron Browning, Cam Akers. If they want to come to Ohio State, they're coming. I hope everyone understands that. And in terms of what else will happen on the roster, I can't speak to that. But guys like that do not get turned away from college football programs. They're just too good. You're recruiting at a level now where, I mean, they may get 4 or 5 of the top players out of Texas. If they pull that off, that'll literally be, I'm not sure, I think you could put it in the most impressive things they've ever done from a recruiting standpoint. But I think I would tend to agree with you with Tufele. I think he fits the mold of what they want right now. There's a part of me that wonders why they haven't been as attractive to the big pluggers, but it would be interesting to see Larry Johnson get his hands on either one of those guys. I think they're both going to be driving big fancy cars here in the next 3 to 4 or 5 years. All right, Duane, we're going to finish it off the way we always do. Your eye test top 5. Obviously, your Buckeyes got to sleep through the weekend, but your eye test top 5 as of today.
Well, obviously, I'm going tied at the top with Ohio State and Alabama. I have to say that. I've watched Alabama, and I've rewatched Ohio State's games, and they are the top 2 teams in the country, tied for number 1 on my board. Number 3, I'm going with Louisville. I was so impressed with what they did against Florida State. I mean, they just absolutely poleaxed them, and that just doesn't happen. They would be number 3. I'm going to stay with Clemson, number 4. Still got the most dominant quarterback in the country, a guy who can make the difference, and a pretty decent defense. That's one thing that is, they have not been exploding on offense, scoring a lot of points, except against, who was it, South Carolina State or somebody. That's the only time they've really had a big offensive explosion. But the defense is playing really well, and you've got Watson back there who can make it happen at any time. I'm going to throw Stanford in there at number 5 simply because Stanford is winning. They're a top-ranked program. I thought about going with Houston, but I just did not like what I saw when Houston played Cincinnati. And since then, we can look and say Oklahoma was overrated. You know, they're not a bad team, but they're not really. They were top 5. They shouldn't have been. Houston beating them was not as big a deal as it seemed when we the first week of the season when Houston beat Oklahoma. So that's going to be my top 5. I really only have a top 4. I'm not. Those are the only 4 teams I'm really think good football teams right now. We'll see as the season goes on. Maybe Stanford. I saw Stanford Saturday night, and their quarterback situation is pretty bad. But they're playing good defense. They got one of the best backs in the country. They're a well-coached football team, so I'm going to plug them in at number 5.
There you have it, people. Could be changing soon. There's a lot of big games on the docket for this weekend. We'll be back with Duane next Tuesday. Have a great one, Bucknutters.